Welcome to the Bromley Adult Education College Digital Drop-In Podcast, getting you back to work with confidence.
Hello, I'm Jill Collier and welcome to episode 34 of the Digital Drop-In Podcast. Today I'm joined by Kev Muckle, who works for the LAS. So, hello Kev.
Hi Jill, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this podcast with me. I've been really wanting to get somebody on the podcast from the emergency services for a very long time. So I cannot tell you how delighted that I finally found my victim. So, who do you work for? What do you do? So
you're right, I work for the LAS, which is the London Ambulance Service. I'm now the Vaccine Manager for the whole trust, but a paramedic is my background and still is. So I still work operational as a paramedic as well for the service. That's basically what I do at the moment.
So you've already lost me on vaccine whatever. What does that mean?
So as a vaccine manager, each year, as we know, we have things like the flu and COVID, and my job is to make sure that every single person within the trust has the opportunity of having a vaccine.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I organise the delivery of those to the various stations that we have, and we have 61 stations. I particularly have 28 or 31 actually vaccine fridges that we put vaccines into, and then we have teams that go out and we organise these teams to give their own colleagues these vaccines.
And is this for just the people that are in the ambulances on the road, as it were?
It is.
To protect them from anything that they could sort of catch in doing their job?
Yeah, is it more about, so with any kind of thing like the flu or COVID, you can obviously pass that on to people, and that includes your family.
Right, yes.
So working in ambulances is not a particularly clean environment, as you can imagine. It's a very close environment with people that, can be some of the most sickest people in London.
Yes.
So if your immune system is compromised by any way, then you are susceptible to viruses such as the flu and COVID, and obviously they can be killers.
And what sort of percentage of your job is taken up by managing that whole process? That
actually starts most of the year. I'm actually planning for next year's campaign, which will start in October. So we're actually just finishing now. So the end of this month is the close down of the flu vaccine campaign for 24-25. And the new one starts 25-26, but there's quite a bit to organise in between times, such as fridges being calibrated, organising the delivery methods, and making sure we've got all the stock, etc.
I'm already shocked. I think you said 61 locations?
Yeah, so we've got around 61 stations. We actually have the fridges in the vaccine fridges within certain stations, and within those stations or complexes, they will have smaller stations. So, for example, Bromley has Beckenham, it has St Mary Cray within that, and it used to have the Old Kent Road actually, which was in part and parcel of Bromley Station. So it's not just one, not just one station.
So the Bromley ambulance station is the one near Bromley Common?
That's it, just behind the Crown.
Yes.
So that's the main station of one of the stations in South East. You've got another one at Greenwich in Shooters Hill, and again that will have other substations, so Barnhurst, Woolwich, and I'm just trying to think. It's got another 2 stations. I'm trying to think what they are.
Yeah. So how far does an ambulance have to? If there is an emergency call, if they are just sitting twiddling their fingers, which they're probably not.
Yeah, they don't do that.
What is the kind of the maximum distance that a ambulance?
It's Pan London.
Right.
So if there's an ambulance available in Bromley, and that's the only one that's available in London, and there's a call in North London, it will go to North London.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, you see, I would have thought that was a bad time management, because in the amount of time it could take from an ambulance to get from Bromley to North London, as the worst case example, one in North London could become free or not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So within the ambulance service, you have different roles and different things that are completed to make everything work. So it's not just the ambulances out there. So you've got your 999 call takers. That's where it would really start when you call in. Once they've actually triaged the call, that will then go to something called an allocator, and they will look after the sector desks. They're the ones that allocate the ambulances out, jobs, if you like.
Yes.
So they will look at the list and look what's going on that list. So if there's an ambulance that's the only ambulance available in London, let's say in Bromley, they will get that running to the incident in North London, for example, but they will constantly be looking for an ambulance that's going green or coming clear.
Ah, brilliant, yes.
So it's always
so
something.
they can reallocate.
So they're moving things around all the time. They have to be really quite on the ball.
Yes. Right, so I've already gone off a tangent here as to just wondering how the thing works. But when you're not managing the injections and things, are you actually on the road?
I'm not on the road with the ambulance service, but I do other project work. So I work in something called People and Culture and the Wellbeing team. And that enables me to look at different project work, and I'm tasked with different project work by my boss. And that will be things such as sickness policies. There's lots and lots that goes on behind the scenes. It's not, as I said, just the paramedics and the ambulances out there. You've got many cogs that make this whole big machine work.
Right. Have you ever been on the road?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is that where one starts or not?
It can be. A lot of people will do different things. So, again, for example, working in a 999 call centre, they might work at 111 because we control all the 111s as well within London. They might work in IT. They might work in the P&C department. So there's opportunities to go and move in various places around the service, and there's lots and lots of opportunity. Right. But yeah, I was on the road for 14 years. I started out in something called A&E Support, which is like a non-emergency part of the ambulance service, just going to lower acuity calls. Did that for 12 months and then got myself a secondment over to the resourcing centre, which is where all the scheduling's done, or was done for all the operations and ambulances. And then whilst I was there, the opportunity came up for me to go on to an internal paramedic course, which is what I wanted to do. So I went on to that. That was funded by the ambulance service, so they paid me while I worked. Got the equivalent of a degree with them over 2.5 years.
Is that what you need to be a paramedic?
You do, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you do now. It's something that's nationally recognised that you need a degree, a Bachelor of Science, to do it. I did it the older way of doing it, which was something called an IHCD exam, an examination process. That took me 2.5 years. I worked on a car out of Greenwich and an ambulance out of Greenwich for about 3.5 years. I then took another position in something called the Clinical Hub, which was actually within one of our call centres. And what we did there is we called back patients. So again, for the lower acuity ones, where they might not necessarily need an ambulance, we would call them back and go through a triage system with them to make sure it was safe for them and that they didn't actually need an ambulance and that they were going to get the care at home that they needed. So, we could provide at very early time advice to them regarding their illness and what they could do. If we felt it needed, we could also get taxis for them to go into hospital and arrange for them to go into hospital. But now things have changed, even in that short length of time, where there are doctors that we can refer them to now. There are nurses that go around there. We have mental health specialists that go out on cars.
Really?
So it's a huge, great big operating machine that works within London.
Yes. So do you know what? It's so obvious now you say it, but it hadn't actually occurred to me that you needed that level of knowledge to be in an ambulance. I'm kind of thinking you're just kind of picking them up and taking them into hospital, and just dealing with emergencies, I don't know, like CPR and things like that. I'm thinking you're just dealing with emergencies, getting them in the van and off you go. But you actually need an awful lot of knowledge.
But you can build on that knowledge, so you don't have to be a paramedic to be in an ambulance. And indeed, the difference between me being a qualified paramedic and a registered healthcare professional and somebody that isn't, so a technician, for example, it's just the drugs I give.
Right.
Their knowledge is as much as mine.
Oh, right.
It's just that they're not legally allowed to give certain drugs and do certain procedures. But actually, that's the only difference.
Right.
So it's a title,
Yes.
but the knowledge that these guys have got and some of the other guys that aren't paramedics is just as well, just as good.
Yes. And the driver is a paramedic?
You take it in turns.
Right.
So generally what happens is most people will be teamed up with a partner permanently, and they're 12-hour shifts. So you'll work in some cases 2 or 3 days in a row. So one person will do it one day, one person will do it the next.
Right.
Or you can take it in turns and swap around every other job. Or you can do half a day driving. So it's up to the team.
Is it generally 2 in a team then?
In an ambulance, it is. Yeah.
Right.
It can be 3.
Yes.
All depending on if you've got any more people that are being trained.
Right.
And all depending on how it's worked out for the day. So sometimes we will take extra people out in those vehicles. And the same as in the cars. I've taken doctors out, junior GPs, just to show them what we do for the day.
I would have thought then, the 2 of you, if you become a team and you're teamed up, you must become quite sort of intuitive of what the other will do. Do you get to that point where you feel very comfortable with your... Yeah. And it's like horrid if they're leaving or they're off sick or something. You must have a good bond.
You do, but the training that you have is so high that even if you're working with somebody you haven't worked with before, it can be seamless.
Right.
An example was when I took a GP out with us, and she wanted to see what was going on, and we went to a call where there was myself, team leader, 2 ambulance crews working on a guy, and we all agreed that we were going to do certain things. There was drugs checks. One pulled up the medication that he needed into a syringe. Another person double checked it. Another person gave it, and we just carried on going round in circles. And I spoke to the GP after, and she said that was just amazing to see. How long have you guys worked with each other? I'd never met them before.
Wow. Okay. So yes, the procedures are so clear and precise.
Yeah, they are. They have to be.
You're absolutely right. Yes. I mean, it's so. I mean, sadly, in any job I can think of, you only hear about the things that go wrong, don't you? I mean, like you hear of a plane going down, but you don't think of the fact that, thousands of planes fly very successfully every day. You hear. So, do you get bad rap or not? Do you feel that you are respected in the...
It's got respect-wise, no. The attacks on our staff have become just so high now and a daily occurrence. My colleagues will wear or can wear their stab vests as well as on their body cams. And assaults are just going through the roof.
What would people be assaulting you for? You've turned up, or you're late, or you're not giving them what they think they should have? Are they deciding they're the doctor?
There could be a number of things. The first one that you never want to be in that position. The first one you would hope is because of a medical condition. Right. And you can kind of get your head around that it's a medical condition that's causing them to be like that. But sadly, that's not the case in a lot of them.
And I suppose with the mental health that you've touched on,
Yeah.
they're kind of addressing that slightly differently now, and maybe sending someone that is more knowledgeable or equipped to deal with.
We have mental health nurses that go out with paramedics in cars. That's something that was sort of flagged by us a few years ago, and has become quite a big thing and a big part of what we do. Mental health is huge with the calls that we receive, and whilst I'm on that, we can receive sort of 7,500, 8,000 calls a day. You know, which is we are the busiest ambulance service in the world, and we just cover London.
And what happens when you move outside London? Are they regional ambulance services? Do they cover counties, or how?
Yeah, so if you've got something like CCAM, for instance, or for example, which is South East Coast,
Right, okay, yes.
they will cover anything from sort of the back part of Biggin Hill, so Surrey, Sussex, going up all the way through Gatwick.
Wow.
Their area is huge, absolutely huge, and you can imagine the distances. So Kent is not small.
No.
So for, again, from one area where ambulance stations at Deptford will go all the way down to Folkestone.
Right.
They do have ambulance stations
Yes.
dotted down there and around,
Yes.
but the distances they travel are huge, and it's the same for other ambulance services as well.
Yeah. I suppose the plus is there's hopefully not as much traffic as there is in London. I don't know.
There isn't. It's just the distance they have to cover.
Yes.
So they'll be running times, for an hour and a half. Can be
Yeah.
even on lights.
Yes.
Regardless. The issue that we have is that with the calls and the calls that we have coming in, you can get people waiting for ambulances,
Yes.
because the call rates are so high. But
Yes.
when you've got somebody calling for dropping a tin of baked beans on their foot and saying they can't breathe, they get a higher acuity call. So they will get an ambulance, they will get a car, and I've been to them myself where they just don't need them, and people aren't thinking. They
And you
need
have to
think.
prioritise, don't you? Which is a tough call for the people receiving the calls, I assume. Trying
absolutely.
to prioritise who's going to get the ambulance first must be.
They have a thankless task, but these people are on the phones. They will take calls from members of the public that are extremely ill, agitated, having babies, so they can give instructions on how to deliver a baby over the phone. They can give instructions on how to do CPR over the phone,
Yes.
which is just amazing. When you look at some of these guys,
Yes.
and they are 20, 21,
Yes.
that's incredibly young
Nerves
to be
still.
doing that sort of thing.
Yes.
And taking that responsibility. So, yeah.
So the training process to be a call handler must be immense.
It is. I don't know a lot about it, but there are so many types of job role within the
Yes.
service. It's actually quite good to look at.
Yes.
It's a fantastic
Phenomenal.
place to look at.
So moving on from that, Kev, how did you decide to think? What made you decide to look at whether it was the LAS in particular, or just whether you thought you wanted to be in an emergency service? How did that thought come?
I guess, I had, as a little boy, always wanted to be,
you did?
Yeah, no, either a police officer, a firefighter, or in the ambulance service.
So
and
you knew that?
Well, yeah, it's something I always wanted to do. I never followed through with trying to apply or do it, and I'd been thinking about it for a while. I had my own company as a mortgage broker and financial advisor. Went away on holiday, and my wife turned around and said, "You're driving me mad. Can you make a decision on what you want to do?" So
Right.
she said to apply for them, and if you don't get them, fine, we'll look at something else.
And did you not follow it through because when you left school you thought the training and qualifications was too great, or just different things got in the way, or you just...
Youth.
Youth.
Youth and making a decision. And I had the full backing of a wonderful wife that wants the best for us all, and she just said, "Go for one, see what happens." So that's what I did, and that came out and came up. And I joined the service 16 and a half years ago, and don't earn anywhere near as much as I did
I know,
back. But you know what? Best thing I ever did.
It is it?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
And why? Job satisfaction, or...?
I mean, there's been various things that have happened through my career anyway. I didn't stop in the clinical hub. I went into something called HART, which is a hazardous area response team. And that unit specialises in things like, hazardous areas. So fires, irrespirable atmospheres, urban search and rescue, water rescue, height rescue, anywhere where you wouldn't normally want to go as a paramedic. You had specialist training to do that, and lots of different pieces of kit to use while you was doing it. So you went to all the a few of us will say the Gucci jobs, the nice jobs. So anything particularly like terror attacks, which aren't particularly nice, we were specialist trained in that, like I said, fires, etc. as well.
And the specialist, I mean, I just pick on terror attacks as you said that. Is that because they almost need to be prepared for seeing some pretty hideous sights, or how to deal with those instances? Why would they need this sort of...
So this goes back to some terror attacks in London, Tavistock Square around that time. And there was no specific training for the ambulance service to go into these areas, these very dangerous areas.
Right. Okay.
Whereas the fire brigade and the police could. And it was obviously the coroners looked at this, and there was a big inquest into it. And the question was, well, why can't we do it? And it had never been put in place. So that's when HART was created nationally,
right?
Not just in London, but nationally, to allow us to go into those sort of. So we're specialist trained in whatever it may be, like I said, the terror attacks, and we will be able to go into something called that warm zone, and treat patients,
right?
And hopefully save lives where beforehand we wouldn't have been able to.
Right. And I mean, in the course of, any of the call handlers, the actual, paramedics, any of them, they must be subjected to some pretty lifelong sort of thoughts and events in their head. Trauma, yes, sorry. Yeah. Is there some sort of training to kind of... I don't know, somehow... I mean, as you say, if you went into a terrorist attack, you're going to see bodies in all different conditions. Any human, I'm thinking of myself, it would traumatise me, and you've got to be able to manage that and move on to the next job, haven't you? Is it a tough call?
It is. I think as human beings, we're not designed to see that sort of thing time after time after time. No. And, a lot of my colleagues are still doing that. They're still seeing that. There are trauma networks. We have trained counsellors that we can speak to. Right. We have mental health. There's a lot of support there. Should you choose it? Some of us don't. No. Some people don't. But there is plenty of that on offer if you need it and you want to talk. Again, that's something that the team I'm working with do, the wellbeing team, who I've got a lot of time for. I think they're absolutely fantastic in what they do for our colleagues and what's on offer for people now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, but that is us. We're all built differently, aren't we? And some people can probably segment it more easily than others. But the fact that the help is out there is all you can ask for. As you say, not everybody wants it. Not everybody needs it. It's their job, and that's what they're trained to do. Yeah. And that's a sort of would be a big issue to me. But so there's obviously been a lot of progression in your job. You've mentioned sort of many positions you've been through. Are you at a point now where you can think, I'm happy, I'm doing what I want to do, and this is where I want to be? Or are you looking to still progress within the ambulance service?
I'd still like to progress, and there's a lot of support from my immediate boss as well. Like I said, there's a great team around us, and the opportunities of moving around, like I said, within the service are humongous, really. There's many opportunities, and they support you educationally as well. if that's what you want to do. There are bursaries for paramedics and some of the other guys that are working on the front line, for example. And I've just finished an advanced diploma in management practice with Middlesex University, which again was funded by London Ambulance, which has been eye-opening.
Yeah. Do you know what? Anything you learn, I think when you get older at school, because you do a lot of subjects that you're not particularly interested in and you gradually home in on them, but I'm not sure whether we are kind of almost mature enough to deal with school when we get this kind of sweet time to be able to learn so much. When you get older, I think you actually appreciate going on these courses more, don't you?
You do, but I'm rapidly getting to the point where I'm starting to think, look, I might have another 9 years left before I retire if I can, which a lot of my colleagues know about and know what I want to do.
Right.
But yeah, the opportunities are always there should I want to take them. It's just a decision that I need to do and I need to take myself.
It's amazing they do offer so much though, isn't it? I mean, it's
not easy to get into, it's not easy to do, but the opportunities are there, and always I would say, it's just a matter of keep on trying if at first you don't succeed.
Yes. Well, that was what I was going to ask you. Is the job retention quite high so there isn't many opportunities to get in, or is it a big enough organisation that people are moving on, retiring? Is there always job sort of opportunities?
There are. There are always job opportunities, and recruitment for frontline and ambulance work is always going to be quite high on the list. And actually, with the way it works over here, we find it hard to employ paramedics, qualified paramedics. So we actually take them internationally, so
really?
Australia and from over Europe. And it's the same as other ambulance services around the country. We don't have enough going through university to do that. But and people don't want to come out with £40,000-50,000 worth of debt because pay just isn't that high. However, we do have these opportunities, the apprentice route, for example, which is 4 years, where it's all paid for.
Right. Yes. And are they few and far between? Are these apprenticeships more difficult to get, or
they are at the moment? I mean, we just stopped. Just finished the recruitment process not so long ago. I mean, obviously it's not something I do, so the recruitment team would be the ones to speak to. But if you have a look at our website, which is www.londonambulance.nhs.uk, there's a blue bar at the top, and there's a section in there that says "Working for Us." If you click on that, that will give you a list of all the current job vacancies that are around at the moment, and give you an overview of what we have on offer.
I'm going to put that in the show notes that go with this podcast, because I think it will be of interest to a lot of people. I think,
and it should be.
It's I hadn't kind of clicked that the other option was to become a paramedic, sort of go through that yourself, and as you say, incur the debts that bring with that. But it's hard. I mean, I've heard I've heard doctors, vets, they all say the same, that abroad it's a cheaper and or quicker route through to this qualification. We don't help ourselves, do we, in this country?
No, we don't. And there is, no matter where people come from for the international side of it, they still have to not re-qualify over here with ours, but there's certain things and criteria they need to meet. But don't forget, there are other things such as mechanics. We have our own fleet guys that look after the ambulances.
Yes, you can't take it to quick fit or something.
No, you can't. So Mercedes, they look after our Mercedes ambulances, our DAF ambulances, Fords. They're electric vehicles now, fully electric vehicles. I was
just going to ask that, were they petrol or... I have an electric car, so I'm a huge enthusiast, but I can understand it.
We have got cars. There are issues with that, the same as anything else, because if you've got blue lights going, sirens going, the batteries tend to run out quite quickly.
Right, yes.
But
on the electric cars, you're saying?
And we've got 2 electric ambulances at the moment as well that we're using. But But we've also got something called CRU, which is our cycle response unit. So we have push bikes that go around London, and they're also based at Heathrow, because Heathrow is huge.
It's actually quicker probably by bike, isn't it?
It's much quicker by bike.
Wow.
So yeah, you've got those as a specialist team, and motorcycles as well. You've got something called TRU, which is a tactical response unit. There's something called NETS, which is our non-emergency transport service. Like I said, there is so much
just
there.
Phenomenal, isn't it?
It's a massive machine.
Yeah.
Huge. So yeah, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to make it work and to keep it working.
So it could be quite tricky to get in, but once you're in, you're you can see the opportunities, I guess, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask sort of what qualifications or experience do you need to join the organisation, but I've realised now it's irrelevant because there are so many different jobs.
Yeah.
I kind of, in my mind, was thinking there's an ambulance driver, there's one in the back that knows his
Little
stuff.
tip, don't call anyone an ambulance driver.
Well, exactly. I'm so wrong. They are both qualified paramedics then.
Well, they're both qualified, but they'd be qualified in maybe different ways.
Yes.
Normally ambulances won't have two paramedics on there. There'd be a paramedic, so a registered healthcare professional, and then there will be somebody else that hasn't got that registration.
Yes.
But they could quite easily be as knowledgeable.
Yes. But the call centres people also, I mean, in a way, they're the ones making the call, aren't they, as to whether an ambulance goes or not.
Yep.
And
they are.
I mean, I think that's where, in my mind, I thought you would start. I thought that would be the starting position, being a call kind of handler, and then move on to be a paramedic. But
it can be.
But yes, I guess it's what your interest is first, isn't it, and what there is out there.
It can be. It can be any single one of those that you wanted to do. A lot of people would go into the non-emergency transport service and work their way through there, and that gives you great knowledge with how to speak to people, and talking to people is a massive thing.
Yeah, sure.
That's a massive thing.
Yeah, and staying calm and,
trying to.
Well, my, there really is so much to I say the London Ambulance Service, but any ambulance service. I guess they all have their different trials really as to whether it's a larger area to cover or a very densely populated area. It's going to be different. But I'm assuming, a bit like any other medic, if you've trained with the LAS and then you do move to Scotland or something, it's just learning their maybe slightly different procedures, policies and procedures, but apart from that... It is,
yeah. There'd be no change, apart from obviously you're going from the best ambulance service in the world to something that might not be quite as good. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, Kev, I am delighted that you've taken this time to talk to me. I think it will be really, really helpful for a lot of people that have been considering a role in something like this, and you've given them a really good kind of insight to all the fantastic opportunities. But as I say, I will put your website up with the podcast, and they can look for themselves if it's something that they think that they would like to.
I really hope it is. I really hope it does help someone make a decision, and they won't regret it.
No,
it's a fantastic career. If you don't succeed on your first time, just try again.
Yeah,
try again.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed that. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
This podcast has been produced by Jill Collier for Bromley Adult Education College. For help with all your job searching needs, do visit one of our digital drop-in venues. Our free sessions are advertised on our website at www.baec.ac.uk or telephone 0208 659 7976. We offer free use of computers for job searching, advice on creating a winning CV, plus lots of short training courses to gain skills in the digital world. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast to receive notifications of new episodes.